Welcome back, everybody. This is Todd Sylvester with the Todd Sylvester Inspires Belief Cast. Thank you for joining me today. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Veracity Networks, and my good friend, Drew Peterson. Thank you for believing in me and making this get out to many more people, and wouldn't be possible without you. And I want to thank all the listeners too. Thank you for tuning in week after week. I pinch myself every week on how many people are listening, and it's a beautiful thing. And I think it's because of the amazing guests that I have on week after week. And today is no different. Today we are joined by Jenica Parcell. Thank you for joining us, Jenica.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. A little background on Jenica. She's a mom to two beautiful twins and married to her awesome husband, Tyler. They have an amazing story, which we're going to get into here in a minute. But she started a popular blog back in 2014 called A Slice of Style, where she kind of goes through and shares with her journey on what she went through, and very vulnerable, by the way, which I really love. She thinks family is her greatest gift, which we'll talk about. She believes that we all deserve the best in life. She struggled with infertility for years. And again, we're going to talk more about that journey and how she came across these two miracle twins that are just absolutely beautiful. She has, I don't know if you call it a company or a foundation, but the Slice of Sun, which is it's a space for women with infertility to come to feel supported and loved. And you really are just a person with passion and love you're just trying to make a difference in this world. And as you say over and over again, sharing your light and towards people who are struggling especially. So thank you, Jenica, for coming to share your life with us today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me here.
You bet. So why don't we start? Why don't you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and a little bit about your childhood?
So I grew up all over the place. I can't even remember how many elementary schools, but we moved a lot when I was young. And so maybe like 4 different elementary schools in Utah. And then when I was in 5th grade, at the end of that year, we moved to Texas. And I grew up in Texas in a couple different middle schools and then one high school, and graduated there, and then came back to Utah to go to BYU.
Okay. So how was that moving around? Describe that. I know, I've talked with a lot of kids growing up who did a lot of moving, and at times that can be a very difficult thing. Tell us how you handled that and what that was like.
That's such a good question. And I've actually thought about it a lot recently and just who I am as an adult because of it. And I can go anywhere and find a friend. And I attribute that to being the first, like the new girl at the school so many times over and over again, that I had to be an extrovert and introduce myself to people, because I think
Yeah.
just as humans in general, we get comfortable with our friend groups. And, when you're kids, sometimes you may not look outward for people who need friendship. So I had to be assertive and kind of introduce myself to a lot of different people. And it's actually served me really, really well, because I honestly feel comfortable 95% of the time going anywhere by myself, because I know that there are other people who may be feeling uncomfortable socially and they just want a friend just
Right.
like anybody else. And so I can be that person for them. And so I feel like because of I had to move so much, it helped me to understand human nature really well. And
Yeah.
just the fact that we're all the same and we're all looking for love, and we can always be that for each other. And I really value that about my childhood.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. And like what I hear you saying is that you actually, it helped you develop confidence in you. I mean, to be an
Mhm.
extrovert, you have to be very comfortable in your own skin. Not saying it was easy for you, but what I also like what you said is you also understand what it feels like to feel alone, and
Yes.
not, like you said, we all want love, we all want connection. And so, but you did something about it. It sounds like a lot of kids don't do that. So that's actually pretty impressive. Where do you think that confidence came from?
That's a good question. So there were many times where I felt lonely, and I think that that was a developed skill in being a friend to people, and even something that came out more of as an adult where I feel confident. because there were many times where I would eat alone by myself in the bathroom or in the
Right.
library. And
Wow.
middle school is a rough scene. And
Yeah.
but honestly, I wouldn't change it because I feel like it helped me since I was in that position. I don't want other people to be in that position. So it helped me to look outward and even as an adult, try to find people who may be feeling alone. And you know, it was ended up being a good thing for me.
Well, that's awesome. I love that perspective. What were some of the things that you did struggle with besides that? I mean, were there things as a kid that you mentioned? I mean, junior high, middle school is like a minefield, right, for all of us, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
what were some of maybe the other things that maybe at times you wrestled with and struggled with?
That is a good question. So one thing, and I've actually been thinking about it lately,
Hmm.
and I almost thought that it was so normal that I didn't know it was a big thing, but I developed very early on. So I was like this size. I'm 33 now. I was this size in eighth grade. And I remember like going to gymnastics class one time, and this teacher said, "Oh my gosh, you're so heavy." She was trying to help me with gymnastics. And it just gave me, I didn't realize it at the time because you're so
Right.
impressionable and don't understand a whole lot back then. But
Sure.
I always was a little bit self-conscious of being bigger of everybody than everybody else.
Hmm.
And I didn't realize how much that affected me. And so I've really had to develop a sense of self-worth. It's not based on how I look and what my body is like. And I've really been able, because of that, to turn to God and my Heavenly Father and to get
Mm,
my self confidence from the fact that I'm a daughter of God and it has nothing to do with anything external, but that I'm wholly like valuable and wholly um honestly just how he would want me to be as I am right now. And
yeah.
so I just love experiences like this because it really teaches you where to turn for peace. And I
Right.
don't think that like I think that if life was perfect and you didn't have trials like that, you wouldn't need God and you wouldn't need anybody else besides yourself. So
Yeah.
those experiences have helped me to turn outward and gain strength and like a better relationship with Heavenly Father.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Thank you for sharing that. You know, so I think, when we're all younger, we're all a little awkward, right? I was a very
Yes.
skinny kid, like, and as a boy, I always wanted these big muscles, but I was so skinny. And kind of like you, it wasn't even an issue. I didn't even think anything of it until I overheard some people laughing about how skinny I was. And if for some reason, when I heard they were laughing, it crushed me. And this was in seventh grade. And so I can
Mhm.
relate with what you're saying. It's like, oh, it's no big deal. And then you have this moment where, oh man, you're so big or you're so heavy or whatever it was, and how that
Yeah.
really starts to play on our belief systems about ourselves. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love now that I can recognize that because I'm sure my kids will have their own trials with different things that I
Right.
personally didn't experience, but I love that I can talk with them about that now. And my twins are 4.5, and all the time I'll say things like, your body is just the right size. And oh my gosh, look at how Heavenly Father made your feet. Let's talk about all the good things that your feet can do for you. And look at your
Yeah.
arms and what can your hands do. So it's helped me to become a better mother. And again, like I said, I'm sure there will be things that I can't address that I personally didn't experience as a child, but because I did, I can then help them with that specific thing.
Absolutely. It goes with the old saying, life happens for us, right? Like
Hmm.
we learned through that and now you can give back. I love that. You mentioned that in those tough times and some of the, you would turn to God. Is that the way you were raised, or is that something you picked up along the way? Did you have friends that influenced that, or was it your parents? What was that about?
So I was born in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and it was just natural and normal to me. And to be completely honest with you, I don't feel like I really understand like how important that was for me and it still is for me until recently,
Okay.
because it was just such a normal thing. Like I'd never been without the gospel of Jesus Christ, so I didn't know how
Hmm.
drastically different it would be without it. And so back then, honestly, I probably didn't recognize it as much as I should have. Um, but I but it gave me an anchor to turn to and like a weekly reminder of where I can turn to. And then based on teachers' help and curriculum help within the church, I was able to slowly, it was like little seeds were being dropped almost to
Hmm.
remind me of where I can turn to for that peace, because there were plenty of places that I turned to try to find it that never worked.
Right.
Just even different simple things like retail therapy or, watching a good show on TV. Yeah, it's nice temporarily, but that's not going to give you lasting peace. And so it helped me when I was growing up, but I feel like even more now, I'm
Yeah.
realizing how much it did help me and like that foundation of the fact that I'm a daughter of God, and that's enough.
Yeah. Wow. That's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Well, let's, jump ahead here a little bit. Obviously, you got, like you just mentioned, you have two beautiful twins. Is it Harris and Goldie? Is that I'm saying that
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. And again, I think a lot of people have followed your journey for years now, but I'd love to hear just, kind of some raw perspective from you struggling with infertility. Just talk us through that a little bit and share your story around that.
Okay. So I was never the one growing up that really was super excited to be a mom. I knew that it would happen one day, but
Hmm.
a lot of people say, like, that's the only thing I ever wanted. And that was never me.
Right.
I was really excited to go to college. I was excited to have a career. And so my husband and I were married for about probably 7 years, I think it was. And then I just all of a sudden one day I was sitting in church and I saw this little girl with brown eyes, and it just hit me. Oh my gosh, I think might have a little girl with brown eyes, which I do now, which is so crazy looking
Right.
back on it. But
Yeah.
honestly, it was a relief to me to get that like motherhood instinct because it wasn't there really. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
good, I want to have kids. And so we didn't think that we would struggle with infertility because none of our parents had any issues conceiving. So I just got off birth control and we started trying, and nothing happened within a year. And
Yeah.
I had started my blog in 2014. And so everything was kind of going on in the background of us trying to conceive. But I just thought in my head that we would have this trial and I would share it after it was over and just
Right.
share the success story after. So I tried to get a job after college at this place that I thought that I was qualified for, was really excited about, and I didn't get it. And looking back, I now know why, because I ended up getting a job at a software company. And this company I started working at before we were even trying to conceive. And
Hmm.
they ended up covering all of our fertility treatments, which looking back on it saved us probably $200,000. And we would have had to
Wow.
probably go into debt had we not
Yeah.
had that infertility coverage.
Wow.
So we did an IUI, which is artificial insemination, did that once, didn't work, twice, didn't work, three times, didn't work. And so luckily at this point, we had really good insurance. So we did a round of IVF. We got 3 embryos, transferred one, didn't work, transferred two, sort of worked, but I had a miscarriage on an airplane in China
Oh,
when we were
wow.
on a vacation. And at that point, after 5 different procedures and all of that, my body just felt really sick. My mind felt tired. I was just kind of exhausted. So we decided we wanted to take a break that summer. And when we got back from our trip to China, I was up in the night at like 3 a.m. with jet lag. And I just decided to write out our whole story. And I've always loved to write.
Boy.
It's always been very therapeutic for me.
Yeah.
I got like a 17 on the ACT in math, but like a perfect score in English. So it balanced itself out. But I just love English. I love writing. It's just always been like
Sure.
a gift for me. So it felt so good to write it all out. And I just kind of had this impression that I maybe should share it. And at this point, I didn't know how um, common it was to experience infertility. So about 2.5 weeks later, I was asking people to read it before I published it and asking people's opinions. And then I finally published it. And I was truly blown away by how common it was and how many people could
Yeah.
relate to it and how they were like saying me too. And honestly, that's how my blog took off. And I to this day, I have no idea how people found it, but I had emails from people around the world just thanking
Right.
me for sharing the story. And so we took a break that summer from trying because we were just exhausted and needed a break. So my husband and I both bought dirt bikes, which is just, it makes me laugh still to this day that we just bought dirt bikes. It's like, why, you can't have a baby, so you buy a dirt bike. Great.
Right. Yeah. Hey,
So
it's
we
good.
just took a break. We rode all summer and had a lot of fun. And then I was on a business trip that summer in Canada, and I was walking along a street, and there was a book that said 100 gathered thoughts for my beautiful child. And it was a nice little message from this author to their children. And it made me think
Mm.
that I should document our third round of IVF through letters to our future child. And so that's what I did on the blog. I said, to my beautiful child, we went in for our appointment today, and just documented everything. And people really could relate to that, especially those that were experiencing infertility at the time. And so we documented the entire thing, and it's still up on the blog. There's an infertility section on the blog. And then we were able to conceive our little boy and little girl, who are now 4.5. And it's been the biggest blessing to me, because I mean, I would do it over and over again, because I truly feel like I found my calling in life and helping
Yeah.
women with infertility. And I obviously needed that experience to be able to do so and understand and have empathy for that. And and I think I honestly started my blog because I could help women with infertility. I didn't know it at the
Right.
time, but I think God laid that path for me. And it's been really a big blessing for me to be able to connect with these women.
Wow, that's amazing. When you were getting ready to actually put it up online, right, on your blog, were you nervous at all? Did you hesitate, or were you just like, "Nope, I'm going for it and I'm gonna put it out there?"
I was really nervous because, like I said, this was back in 2015. And at least from what I saw, I didn't know a whole lot of people talking about infertility at the time. And I was super nervous, because putting something out there that's so close to your heart, and something that for me and
Yeah.
us was it's the most important thing in life, is family and human relationships. And to put something out there that somebody could judge or maybe misconstrue or offend, I think I was kind of a people pleaser at the time. And so
Yeah.
to say something maybe in my story that would have offended somebody,
Sure.
really, it was very stressful for me. I remember when I hit publish, my heart was just pounding. It was
Oh, I
very
know.
nerve wracking.
Well, what's beautiful about what you've done is that, that's a very vulnerable thing for you to do. And then, but what's amazing is when we're vulnerable, people will connect.
Hmm.
And I really do believe that we're never more fully alive than when we're connecting with other people. And that's really what you've been doing here. And like you said, you wanted to create this safe space for women who have been going through the same thing you have. And obviously, you've done an amazing job, but it's because you've been so vulnerable. I think, as I've read through your stuff, I mean, you don't hold back. You share it all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. I think that it's so nerve-wracking to do it, but then but then I think about other people who have shared their experience, and so I just can't do that, very well, if you're not sharing your full story.
Right. No, I'm with you on that for sure. So, so let me ask you this then. What advice? I mean, I know you can get the advice on your blog and things that you've done, but someone who's going through this right now, like think back when you were going through it. If there's someone, right now who's listening to this or is going through exactly what you've been through, I mean, what kind of advice could you give them? And what were some of the things that you did, not only obviously by yourself, but obviously with Tyler, that helped you through this?
That's a really good question. I would say, remember that you're not a victim. I think that that was my
Mm,
number one thing that helped me through it. I just don't think that it's helpful ever to put yourself in that victim mindset. And for me, the thoughts that really helped me, I would say one thought helped me more than anything, and that was the fact that I was just fully aware that I am a human, and humans have trials and hardships to help them grow. And if it wasn't this trial, it'd be something else. And no one escapes humanity and life without experiencing hard things. So
right.
whether someone's life looks perfect from the outside, 100% guaranteed it's not.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
just think it helped me to really remember that this is not happening to me. This is my life, and this is a trial I've been given for a reason.
Wow. And I love what you said earlier too. You said you kind of found your purpose in life, right? It's like, and how amazing is that? Because I think a lot of people go through life going, I'm not even sure what my purpose is. And so through this trial, if you want to call it that, it sounds like you found your purpose where you're connecting women all over the world.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. And it's so neat too. It's made me trust God even more, because there's so
Mm,
many things looking back on that he laid the path for me that I had no idea why. He planted a seed in my mind. I really just wanted to start a blog. And I thought at the time it was because it would be hard for me to go from working full time to being a stay-at-home mom. So I wanted to have some type of
right.
a hobby. So yes, it does fulfill that, but it also fulfills so much more. And so because I laid the foundation of that blog, and he planted the seed in my mind to do that, then I was able to share it to many more people than I would have just within my own like small like circle of influence locally. And it's just so fun. It really
Right.
is. It's so fun to be able to connect with these women and be able to help them understand their brains and their minds around infertility, and
Right.
just be like the person on the other end that's just holding their hand and saying, "Hey, you've got this. I'm on the other end. If I can do it, so can you."
Yeah. I love that. What's one of the most common questions you do receive from women who are going through this? What do they ask you typically?
They asked me how I was able to remain so happy during infertility,
Yeah.
and I didn't quite understand it at the time. Um, and it's helped me being asked that so many times has helped me to ponder it a lot and ask why. And I think it's because of the thoughts that I chose intentionally.
Hmm.
And so I'm actually going through a coaching program right now. I stumbled upon it after, but
Hmm.
this woman, Jody Moore, she has a podcast, which I love. And I
Right.
listened to all of it and I thought, like, this is what I thought in my mind when I was going through infertility. I just didn't know this model of how to
Right.
explain it to people. And so I'm doing a coaching program right now to help develop an infertility coaching program to help women understand
Wow.
their minds, because I think it's so hard when you're in it in your brain sometimes to
Yeah.
understand what's going on. And I think if you can understand it, then you can change it and intentionally choose thoughts that serve you and help you have the result that you want in your life. And so based on that question that I've gotten so many times, I've really
Yeah.
wanted to be able to help people with that specifically.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I have it even written down right here. How do you stay so positive? Because again, you've been through a lot, but I think what I heard you say, which really hit me hard, is you said you remembered you're not a victim.
Mhm.
Even though it's a hard thing you're going through, but I don't know. I'm really impressed, honestly, Jenica, how you stay so positive and like you said, you let your light shine towards other people. It's just a beautiful thing to watch.
Thank you. That is really kind of you to say. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's just the truth. Well, let's talk a little bit about you got your blog, A Slice of Style, and then you
Hmm.
also have it's a company. Do you call it a company of the Slice of Sun?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of confusing.
The
I feel
Slice
like
of Sun?
it's the slice of sun. I kind of wish I
Okay.
would have created a name with the word fertility in it, but
Yeah,
you do the best you can as you go. But yes,
absolutely.
so that's totally separate. So a slice of style is the lifestyle blog that I started in 2014, and
Okay.
then last year, about 2.5 years ago, I had the seed in my head that I wanted
Hmm.
to start something to help women with infertility specifically. And
Right.
so it started out as just wanting to sell products to help women, because I wore a necklace during infertility that kind of helped. It's kind of like my little silent source of strength that just remind me
Sure.
to be bold and strong. And so I wanted to sell socks and pajamas to sell that they could wear when they're experiencing that, and just kind of
Yeah.
feel the community and feel that there are so many other people that are experiencing it as well. And then a portion of those, so we do sell socks and pajamas,
Okay.
and a portion of those sales go to women experiencing infertility. And then, um, like I mentioned earlier, I'm doing a coaching program that will launch later this year. And that is
Nice.
what I'm the most excited about, because honestly, it has absolutely changed my life. I think that anybody could benefit from it. And I just feel like it's given me the tools that I've learned have empowered me more than anything, and truly helped me remember how in control I am of how I feel and my thoughts and the results I get in my life. And I'm just so excited to be able to share those tools with other people.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I was checking out your site, and on there you have this circle with three waves going through it. Will you explain what that is?
I love that you asked that. So when thinking about what I wanted my company to feel like, sunshine has always been the thing for me that's like the epitome of joy. I just love sun.
Yeah.
I love what it means. It's just joyful. It immediately energizes me. And so the circle is a sun, and then there's a thread going through it that looks like a wave. And I wanted my company to be a place where you come and then you take from it the joy and the sunshine that you need, and then you scatter it elsewhere. So
Right.
it like goes on and on and on, kind of like some sunshine bouncing on a wave where the light just scatters in every different direction.
Oh, I love it. It's beautifully said here on here, but I wanted to hear it directly from you, and I love it. And I love the
Thanks.
concept. And if I understand correctly, when people purchase, whether it's pajamas or socks, you give a portion of money to is it, I think it was currently a friend who's struggling, or is it a company?
Yes. Yes. Right now, I'm actually like in the process of getting that all organized for 2021. But
Okay.
initially, it's my friend. She went through so much to get her. So she has a son and now she has a baby that is being carried by a surrogate who is her
Okay.
sister-in-law.
Okay.
And she did IVF and she ended up getting septic shock. And so she lost her uterus, and so she can no longer carry babies.
Okay.
And so, anyway, the first one was to her, but this year I'm going to choose a new nonprofit that is associated with infertility every quarter. And then the sales will go to, or a portion of the sales will go to one of those nonprofits that help women with infertility.
Oh, love it. That's awesome. Well, again, I love that you're, again, trying to help other people and give back that way. And it's beautifully done, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
my designer, Melanie Burke, did an amazing job, like bringing my vision in my head to life on the screen.
Yeah, it looks amazing. I
Thank you.
why don't we, I think it would be good for people who are listening, if you can kind of maybe give some information about infertility. Like, I mean, I think you mentioned it's 1 in 8 couples actually struggle with this. So
Hmm.
whether you'll probably know someone who is. Give us
Hmm.
some details about it and just some things and maybe some resources that people can look into.
Yeah, so 1 in 8 couples struggle with it. 1 in 4 women experience a miscarriage. And I think that there's a lot of shame around it for whatever reason. I think that we
Mhm.
have expectations on our bodies and expectations on what our bodies are supposed to do. So
Mhm.
from what I understand from my community is there's a lot of shame in it and people are scared to talk about it. And I think that maybe those people that are scared don't realize how common it is.
Yeah.
And luckily there's so many women that are open about it. So on my website there's a stories section on the blog. So if you go to thesliceofsun.com and click on stories at the top, we release a new fertility story every Monday. And these are
Mhm.
from women who are experiencing it currently or have gone through it. And you can search by topic, so whether that's IVF, male factor infertility, adoption. I think it helps a lot to connect with other people, as we had mentioned earlier. And I'm also developing a resources section on the page as well that you can go to, because there's lots infertility treatments are super expensive most of the
Yeah.
time.
Right.
So IVF can be upwards of $20,000 if you don't have insurance, and a lot of insurance companies don't cover it. So there's a lot of great places that have grants. And so on the website, I try to include as many resources as possible that I know about. And if anybody has any that they know about that are not on there, I would love for them to email me at hello@thesliceofsun.com.
Okay.
And we also have a private Facebook group as well, because, like I said earlier, some people are pretty private about it. They haven't
Yeah.
told a lot of their friends and family. So that's a safe place. It's totally private. They can come to that. It's called Fertility Family by the Slice of Sun, and they can just come and connect with people. And there's conversations going all the time with people asking and talking to each other. And so I just think that the main thing I would want people to know is how common it is, and there's nothing shameful about it. And I think I genuinely believe that every experience that we have is for our benefit, and we can find something that then we can then take into the next experiences moving forward that can either benefit ourselves or those around us.
Yeah. Again, well said. And goes back to what we were saying. Life happens for us. Like you said, you wouldn't change any of this, right?
Right.
Obviously, because look what you're doing, and it's put you in a position to be a light to so many people. I know that you're really big on your diet and the way you eat.
Yes.
You really are passionate about that as well. Why is that so important to you, and how has that changed your life?
So after my twins were born, about 3 months later, I got my hormones checked from a doctor, and she
Mhm.
told me at the time, "You have a raging case of mono." And she said,
Mm,
"It looks like a recurring case." And it was interesting to me because I'd never had mono in high
right.
school or anything like that. But I was like, I kind of thought, I didn't know a whole lot about it at the time. So I just kind of thought to myself, like, oh, well, my twins are newborns anyway. I'm going to be tired either way.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
just honestly like ignored it. I didn't do anything.
Right.
And so then last year, it was springtime, and I was so tired all the time and I would get 8 hours of sleep at night. Like my twins were sleeping well at the time. And I would wake up at about, 7 o'clock. And then by 1 p.m., I would just be so exhausted that it was like painful. I would like make up scenarios in my head to try to like escape my life. Like,
Right.
and not like end my life, but like I would try to make up excuses like, I want to go to sleep in a hotel tonight. How can I do that just so I can sleep all day? Do you know what I mean? It was like, I was like,
Right.
and then I look back, I'm like, that's not normal.
Right.
think that, so I talked to my husband about it, and it kind of offended me a little bit at first, because he was like, well, he's like, there's something wrong with you. And I'm like in terms of like health, like he's like, there's something wrong with you. And I was like, no, there's not. I'm like, you have no idea what it's like to be at home with twins all day. I'm like, you'd be this
Right.
tired too, And then
Right.
all of a sudden I was like, maybe he's right. This isn't normal. So I started talking to women who were in my position. They're like, yeah, that's not normal. Like, that's not normal to be that tired.
Yeah.
And so I brought it up to my mother-in-law, and she had mentioned Epstein-Barr virus, which she had when she was about my age. And it's a virus that 95% of like humans have in their system, but most of the time your body can fight it off and your immune system can suppress it to where it doesn't affect you. And something either super physically traumatic or emotionally traumatic can bring it out. And that's what had
Okay.
happened to me. So I started
Wow.
researching, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I have. And so luckily I went to a doctor, and this is another way that God, I totally had my back, where I went to this physician's assistant, and he said if normal doctors looked at your blood work, they would say that you had mono, but that it's passed and the antibodies are there because you'd had it and you're good. But he's like, I've done a lot of independent research, and you have Epstein-Barr virus. And so I had to completely change my diet. It was basically all fruits and vegetables for several months.
Wow. Okay.
And then I started to feel like slightly better. And then I just kind of really became aware last year of what can affect our hormones and what can affect our bodies. And there are so many products like deodorant that has aluminum in it that can
Right.
really negatively affect your hormones. And
Mm.
there's these things called phthalates, which are in a lot of fragrances and products, and they basically mimic your hormones. And so they mimic them so that your hormones don't need to do their jobs, and it just like makes you very like mood swings. It just
Yeah.
affects every part of you. And it just really dawned on me that we cannot fully serve our purposes in life if we don't feel good, because all of
Yeah.
my time was spent to feeling not like crap. I was just
Right.
trying to like make it through the day.
Yeah.
And I'm
Right.
like, I have these dreams of helping all these women with infertility. And if I feel like garbage 95% of the time, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
And then like this was just all progression. And then I just realized, I'm like, Satan is so infiltrated into our food and into the products that we have. Because if you think about it, the only things that we have to do our work here in this life are our bodies and our minds. And he wants to
Yeah.
make us so sick that we can't even
Wow.
get to that point. He just wants us in survival mode, like just making it, hour to hour. And so I actually just recently hired a health coach. Her name's Amanda Sanchez, and she kind of went through all this. She's been off flour and sugar for a year and a half, and she is an absolutely remarkable person. And I've grown so much closer to God than I ever have before, because I just feel like there's so much truth in
Yeah.
what I'm seeing. And I feel like there was a time, for example, like every time once a month, I would get the worst cramps during my period, and I would be so sick. I would just be like in
Right.
bed. And honestly, it made me mad at God for a little bit, because I'm like, why would you make women's bodies like this? I'm like,
Yeah.
what is the
Right.
point? It made me so angry.
Right.
And then suddenly it dawned on me one day, I'm like, what if he didn't? I was like, what if I'm doing something to myself that is making myself like this? And so I was praying about it, and I'd already cleaned up my diet a lot, but I hadn't changed a lot of my products, like my beauty products. And I kept on having this impression, you need to change your hair care products. You need to change your hair products. And I
Wow.
did. And the next cycle I was fine. I did not have to
Really?
take, I didn't have to take pain medication. I was like
Wow.
not sick. I didn't have crazy mood swings. I felt good. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm sorry, God, that I blamed it on you. It wasn't your fault at all. you
Wow.
know? So I like literally, I called Amanda. She's just been my friend. We actually met on Instagram 6 years ago, but I called her early January, and I said, maybe it was late December, but I said, I feel like the only thing holding me back from helping women with infertility is my health. And if I can,
Yeah.
and I also feel like I was relying a lot on food for happiness. Like I
Yeah.
put my kids to bed and I would eat candy, and it would temporarily make me feel better. And then there's this net negative, because you just feel like garbage if you eat a ton of sugar. And so
Right.
I just told her that I was like, I feel like the only thing that's holding me back from God's purpose for me is this, my health and like my food and my eating. And so she's been helping me a lot with it the last like three or
Wow.
4 weeks. I just check in with her and tell her what I'm going to eat and have a set plan and make decisions from a rational standpoint versus like off the cuff. Oh, someone gave me a cookie, I'm going to eat it.
Yeah.
And it has just
Okay.
made all the difference for me. I just feel like I have so much energy now, and I feel like my mind is clear and it's not foggy, so that I can then grow my business and help these women that need my help.
Wow, I love it. I love what you said, how, the things that we have to take care of is our mind and our bodies, right? That's what we're in
Yeah.
charge of. And it
Yeah.
reminds me of a guy, James Allen, out of his book, As a Man Thinketh. I was looking this up as you said this, It says the body is the servant of the mind. It obeys the operations of the mind, whether it be deliberately chosen or automatically expressed. And so, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. When you're not feeling good physically or health wise, your thoughts aren't where they need to be, right? It's hard to be very positive and
Yeah.
not only that, but making a difference. So again, I love
Yeah.
what I love about you is how you're like, okay, here's a problem. I'm going to figure this out. I think you do a very good job of not playing the victim.
Thank you. Yeah, I just don't think it serves me. I'm like, yeah, I could, but who's suffering? Me, you
Yeah.
know?
No, I love that. Yeah, what does a day look like for you? Like, how do you keep yourself? Again, I know you make decisions and stuff to be positive and not play a victim, but what does a day look like for you? Like, what keeps you centered? I know you're busy with your twins and your husband, and all your work you're doing. But what do you do personally outside of even the diet you just talked about? But what do you do to kind of keep yourself centered?
Every day I wake up and the first thing that I do before looking at anything else is my scriptures and
Okay.
connect in some way with God, because I just think that if I'm not doing that every single day, it's so easy to forget who I am. And it's very easy for me to just start making excuses, even different
Right.
things like I noticed myself constantly playing the victim with my time. And I kept saying to myself, I don't have enough time to do this. I don't have enough time to do
Yeah.
this. And then I started really like delving into my scriptures and the Come Follow Me curriculum, which is so amazing in the Church
Hmm.
of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints,
Yeah.
is that it's just helped me so much to be able to take stewardship over everything in my life. And that includes my time. And I feel like as I stay close to God, he'll answer my prayers, and he's the best business partner I've ever had because he knows everything and he
Wow.
created everything. And so I just ask him, like I just feel like if I'm not reading my scriptures or connecting with God every single day, I forget that he is there always. And I am such an independent person that I just try to rely on myself, which just doesn't work because I don't have all the answers. And so I try to do that every day and just remind myself that I don't have to know all the answers and he does, and he's there with me and he knows the path like right now before I've ever even remotely thought about it. Like looking
Right.
back on my blog, he knew that this would lead to this. I had no idea at the time. And so I just think connecting with him every day is the single most important thing that I do because it helps to center me. It helps me to balance my priorities with my family. It helps me to be present with them because I just think that there's a time and a place for everything. And I feel like if I'm not connecting with him, I get so frantic in trying
Yeah.
to achieve and trying to grow. And he helps me find like the stillness and the calm to understand the actions that are actually vital for me to take to move forward in serving his purposes.
Wow, very well said. I've heard many times from people in all types of religions, whether it's LDS or Catholic or whatever it might be. And they've said this a lot where when I'm studying scripture and I'm staying close to God, I find I have a lot more time. And I don't know how to
Mhm.
explain that either, but I hear this a lot. And that's basically what you're saying. And what I loved, you said, God's, the best business partner you could ever have. That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah, you think about it. He created literally everything. He created the ideas in our heads. He created
Yeah.
everything. So it's like, of course he can have the answers for us. It's like amazing to remind myself of that.
Dang, that's powerful, Jenica. Thank you. Um,
Mhm.
I want to ask you this: if there's someone listening to your story right now, that's struggling, whether it's infertility or something else, whether they just feel hopeless or they're depressed or sad, what advice could you give them right now that might be helpful for them?
I would say my advice to them would be to know that there's nothing wrong with them, that they're feeling negative emotions. I think that oftentimes we try to suppress ourselves when we're feeling negativity
Mhm.
and what I call buffer, where you can when you turn to other things. I started doing that a lot when my kids were born with food. I would have
Right.
them go to bed
Yeah.
and I'd be like, this candy will for sure make me feel better. And it
Right.
never does. But I think once I realized that you're allowed to process it and you're allowed to be a human, and there's opposition in literally all things, including our feelings, and there's happy and sad for a reason, and there's
Mm.
depressed and joyful for a reason, and to just like embrace it and don't push it away so quickly, but process it and feel it and don't think there's anything wrong with you. I think that that's the
Right.
worst thing that you can ask yourself is what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. We're all learning, we're all growing. And I think everyone has, like I said many times before, we all have these experiences for a reason. And that, of course, you can do things for yourself and advocate for yourself and learn tools to help you with certain things like depression and anxiety and anything hard that you're going through, but also to just like love yourself in it and realize that you are doing the best that you can.
Wow, so good. So, so good. It's interesting too. You're speaking my language because in my office here on this other side of the wall, when my clients sit down, the first thing they see is there's this quote above me that says, "The most delightful surprise in life is to suddenly recognize there's nothing wrong with you."
Oh,
And
awesome.
yeah. And so I love what you just said there. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I love what you said too about there's opposition in all things. I mean, you're going to feel some negative emotions. That's just being a human being. You're going to feel
Mhm.
those things. But I think we're also, taking that advice that you said will really make a big difference in pulling us out of that. So beautifully said. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, if people want to reach out to you, Jenica, who are listening to this, and they want to learn more about you, learn more about your passions about helping women with infertility, and your websites and your blog, and obviously this coaching program that's coming up, which sounds amazing. What's the best way for them to reach out to you and find out about all these things?
I would say the website, so the sliceofsun.com is a great place.
Okay.
Jenica, I have two Instagram accounts. One was the original that I still post on all the time, the lifestyle blog. It's just my name, Jenica Parcell. And then the fertility specific Instagram is the slice of sun.
Oh, okay. Slice of some awesome. So that would be the best
Mhm.
way. Well,
Yes.
I want to thank you, Jenica, for taking some time out of your busy day today and sharing your story with us. It was amazing. And, I was taking some notes even for myself, like, boy, I need to do better here, better there.
We can
So,
all learn from each other every day.
oh, you're not kidding. And so thank you for, being vulnerable with us today and sharing your story. And I just want to thank you for being an example to me as well and being willing to reach out to the people that are listening to this and make a difference in their lives.
Thank you so much. I love your work and I really appreciate you having me on.
You betcha. Thank you. Well, there you go, folks. I told you another amazing guest, Jenica Parcell. Please reach out to her, thesliceofsun.com, and check her out on Instagram as well. And we look forward to seeing what her coaching program is going to look like as well. And we'll help promote that from our end as it becomes available. So, thank you so much, everyone. I love you guys, and Jenica, you have an amazing day. And thanks for your time today.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.